podcast world, fellow horticulturists, lovers of plants, gardeners, family, and friends. Welcome to Shrubby Buddies, the podcast, friends with woodies for garden goodies. I'm host Matt Guthrie.
And I'm host Tim Fleischer, coming at you from Central Ohio, Zone 6B. We're just a couple of public horticulturists and certified arborists with experience in education, landscape design, gardening, retail, and wholesale.
So grab a drink, polish your pruners, dust off that kneeling pad, and let's get down to business. Hey, Shrubby Buddies, and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I am Matthew C. the First, joined with Timmy Turbo Taurus Fleischer. How are you, Tim?
Good, Matt. Good to see you here in my basement again.
Good. Good to see you, too.
Is that how I sound?
I love it when you do that.
I'm excited.
So, Tim, what's going on? I know you wanted to share with the listeners about our afternoon and what we had going on this afternoon, getting stuff for your landscape project.
Yeah, so my wife Megan and I and my daughters are doing a complete landscape overhaul at my daughter's elementary school. It's in dire need of it, and we've been working with the PTO on getting the funds, and we've got a design and the plant list, and we finally pulled the trigger on picking up the plants we ordered today.
Yes, we did.
So Matt brought his trailer to work, and we went to a we drove over to a local wholesale nursery after work.
Yep.
And I swore this stuff would fit on the trailer, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So we filled up to the brim Matt's Subaru Outback, the inside, the hatch, the passenger seat, the back seat. Also, my Ford Taurus, we filled up the passenger seat, the back seat. I had to take the kids' seats out, and the trunk. And this, I mean, if you've never seen a trunk to a Taurus, I call it a 12-body trunk, because you could get 12 bodies in there easy.
For sure.
It's a big trunk. And then not to mention the 10-foot trailer that Matt was tugging with the Subaru. So, whoa. So we brought that stuff back and had to unload it and get it inside the fence so the deer don't eat it and we can water it. But that's why we're here
at your house.
At my house, which is atypical. We've done it a few times here. I don't love doing it here. I love your basement, but this is where we're at. So
I love your basement.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cozy.
I like my basement. I love my basement too. It's just not, for me, it's not my zen place for recording a podcast.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So, yeah, we had a lot of plants, and Dane, the yard manager guy, was like, you just set a new standard for the amount of plants we can fit in vehicles.
No, it was straight up Tetris.
Yeah, so that was fun. Funny, fun,
yeah.
all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
So, cool, yeah. So this week's episode, what we want to talk about is we want to revisit a prior episode that we had that was the Survivor Perennials episode. So that was kind of in June, into
June 25th.
Yeah, coming into summer. We wanted to talk about perennials then that were perennials you could use that would tolerate the warm, heat, the drought, all of that stuff. And now here we are in Central Ohio. I know most of Ohio, West Virginia, Northern Kentucky. I know there's other places around the United States, obviously, like out west and down south, that are in drought. Have been in a very bad drought.
Yeah, severe
drought, where we're losing crops and everything else. But we wanted to revisit that because we just wanted to hit on some of the plants that that we had talked about in that episode, and then we wanted to also add some plants to that list that we've noticed coming out of this. We've been fortunate to get a little bit of rain this week. We're still in dire need of way more rain, but just plants that are still doing fantastic.
Right. So we're going to touch on a couple of things on our original list that didn't quite make it through this extreme drought. As far as their appearance, they're still alive. And then we're going to introduce some new stuff that really made it through the severest of droughts.
Yeah, for sure. But before we get into that, we have a special guest that we're going to spend a couple minutes talking with here, and that is Tim's daughter, Amelia. She's been begging to make an appearance on the podcast. And so, Amelia, how are you?
Good.
You're good. Are you excited for this?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Okay, so Amelia, while I've got you on here, I wanted to ask you a plant question, okay?
Okay.
What is Amelia Fleischer's favorite plant?
A buckeye tree.
A buckeye tree?
Yeah.
Just like your dad?
Yeah.
Why is the buckeye tree your favorite plant?
I have one in my backyard.
Because you have one in your backyard?
Yeah.
And why else?
Because I had it since I was a baby.
There you go. And probably because you're an Ohio State Buckeye fan, right?
Big one.
Big time, right? Go Bucks.
Yes.
OH.
I-O.
There you go.
What do we say about Michigan?
Go Bucks. Michigan sucks.
That's right. Yeah, it's funny, we were at the Michigan Ohio State girls basketball game last year, and we had the signs that said "Go Bucks, Michigan sucks," didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. So
The tree that Amelia is referencing, we talked about it in a much earlier episode, but we planted it when she was born. So it's like her tree.
Yeah.
That she grows with and gets pictures with every year. So
it's fantastic, and the tree's looking great, Amelia. You're doing a good job growing that thing.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, thanks for being on the podcast with us today,
You're welcome.
and we'll have you back on again sometime, right?
I hope.
Okay, we will for sure, because we're going to have to do another one of those roll of the dice games, and Amelia's got to be our DJ for that.
Yay.
Cool? All right.
thanks, Amelia. You've got a great voice for the mic.
Welcome.
All right. So,
Peace out, sweetie.
okay. So, back to the programming here. So, we don't really have a name for this podcast episode yet. We can just call it Survivor Perennials Part 2.
Revisited. Survivor
Revisited.
Perennials Revisited.
Yeah, we'll just go with that. Survivor Perennials Revisited. So, all right.
So, last time, looking over our list from last time, two things that I would take off the list as far as making it through a rough drought, and that is the goat's beard, the Aruncus, which is a drought-tolerant
Shade
shade perennial that kind of resembles a stilby. Definitely turned crispy. Took a turn for the worst. Still going to be fine for next year. I'm sure the roots are intact, but the crown of the plant is done. And then, what was the other one?
So we talked about the yarrow, that we had moonshine yarrow, and I mean, looking at the ones that I have that have not had any supplemental watering, they're still alive, and there is still some of that silvery blue foliage, but just generally speaking, I think the plant looks kind of crummy.
Yeah, it's taken on a yucky look.
Kind of a yucky, crummy look where in the past, if I've cut them back, they've flushed out some really nice, pretty new growth coming into this time of the year, and that carries on through the fall. And I always cut my yarrow back, and I did that on my yarrows, and they just haven't flushed out that nice growth that I have had in the past, and so they're just kind of left looking a little.
Yeah, so while still a drought tolerant plant that is going to be alive and just fine, we wanted to talk about plants that would still be banging through the drought, and so that's why we're going to take that yarrow off.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we've got some new things to introduce you to today that you may or may not be familiar with, but things that have really powered through this terrible drought we've been having.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't you kick it off, Matt? Just whatever you're excited about.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to start at the top of the list here, and we're going to we'll talk about two of them here. Blue Eye Samsonia being one, and the other is the Amsonia hubrichtii. So
we could lump those together a little
kind
bit.
of both the Amsonias, two different species of plant, though, right? One is hubrichtii, and the other one is Amsonia tabernacle.
Yeah, just It's a long word that starts with T. I always say
Tabernae montana or something like that.
I'll go with
Anyways,
tabernacle.
yeah, so blue ice Amsonia and Amsonia hubrichtii. The blue ice is going to be a shorter in stature type perennial with a little bit chunkier leaf. Still has that pretty kind of periwinkle blue colored flower in the spring, much like the Amsonia hubrichtii. Still takes on that yellow fall color like the hubrichtii does, but just in general, just a different plant all around. The hubrichtii is going to get taller. It's got more of like a lace-like type foliage, gets the beautiful yellow, and even some of the cultivars are kind of that, not really that butterscotchy, Amsonia hubrichtii butterscotch, that butterscotchy kind of color, but those plants through all of this drought that we've been in have just been amazing. I mean, they still look fantastic.
They have, and I was out just last week photographing the blue ice a lot, and everywhere I have it planted, it's just looks like it's supposed to look, and it's created a nice ground cover. It's bright green, not that ornamental this time of year, but it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's green. It's not brown. So it makes the list.
Yeah, and I mean, generally speaking, with these Amsonias, this time of the year, they're not really supposed to be ornamental. I think that for them, it's the early spring with the blue flower, and then it's the fall when it's, comes October, mid-October, when they just take on that beautiful fall color. But generally speaking, through the summer, I think that they just kind of exist. They add texture and maybe a little bit of structure to the border, but yeah. Ornamentally speaking, I would say that they front load and then they back load on that.
So Amsonias through the drought, check.
Yep, Amsonias, check. Russian sage, another one. I don't think that this is probably going to come as a shock to many gardeners that know much about them, but the Russian sages just power through this. I mean, that's kind of what they're known for. They just kill it in the poor soils, the hot weather, the drought, just to look fantastic.
Russian sage was on our list when we were brainstorming for the original Survivor Perennials, but it didn't make the cut for the episode just because it's kind of a pedestrian, almost boring plant sometimes, but after the drought and it's just out there glowing, it's not so pedestrian anymore. It's a super plant.
Yeah.
And Matt mentioned that dry, hot, also pollution. It's one of those plants you see in the medians and the right-of-ways all the time, and for good reason. It's not native, but I'll tell you what, the pollinators love it.
Dude, pollinator magnet.
And it can just grow right along the road where the cars are driving by.
Yeah. Yeah, we have it planted a lot through the city that we work at, and it's in the medians and the right-of-ways, and the city we work out too, we put down about 18 billion pounds of salt every winter.
At least.
And it still just, it doesn't phase it,
Nope.
But it does really well. And I know you said it's a pedestrian plant. There's times that I really like it. I kind of like the texture and the structure that it gives at certain times of the certain time of the year. But yeah, then you add in the tolerance of everything shitty in life.
And
It's a great plant.
And pedestrian doesn't mean I would never use it, because there's a plant we'll get to on this list that's super duper pedestrian, but I love it so much. So
interesting.
We'll get there.
Well, yeah, we will. Okay.
know which one it is.
I know which one it is. So yeah, moving on from Russian sage, Calicarpa or beautyberry. This is another one that we absolutely love. It's a non-native, but okay.
True.
Sorry.
Some of the ones that we're dealing with are non-native. There is a native.
There is a native. You're right.
So, and I know that there's a lot of people with strong opinions on this. We don't have the problem up here in the north with them reseeding and being invasive.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that it was a problem in the south.
Yes, I have heard some reports of the non-native beautyberries, but at the moment, not here.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. Not like barberry and burning bush.
Yeah, I mean, we get
privet
so
and
much
stuff.
dieback on them, so
Yeah, they are kind of can be treated as kind of a sub-shrub, something that dies back to the ground and comes up every year. I've had luck with the purple glam where I haven't cut it back or anything, and it just, it continues to do well. Maybe it's just kind of in the right little spot where it's getting some extra heat off of a stone building, and that's kind of helping carry it on through the winter time. Not to mention, we really haven't had a super cold winter here in a long time either.
that's
So,
true. That's
yeah.
true. And I cut the early amethyst back, like all the way to the ground, so I treat it just like a perennial, and that's why we're calling it a sub-shrub, because it's a woody plant, a shrub in a lot of places, but I treat it like a perennial.
Yeah.
So take it all the way back to the ground.
And you're noticing that it just looks fantastic
it's
right
kicking
now.
ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's gone into its fruit, and if you've never seen the fruit of any of these beauty berries, it's like a metallic, shiny purple, and the stems are just covered in these things.
Yeah, yeah, they're really cool.
And specifically, the early amethyst takes on a nice like orange fall color later in the fall, and that with the purple berries, like orange and purple,
Yep.
got me.
Yeah, it's
So-
the Calicarpa or beauty berry is a fantastic plant for sure.
And then in the same vein, Caryopteris with the common name bluebeard is another subshrub that is a plant that I treat more as a perennial, but it's a woody, is just so drought tolerant. So Caryopteris bluebeard, and it's blooming like now. Right now, it's in full bloom. So you're getting something, a shrub that's blooming like a lot later than a lot of the shrubs. So it's kind of filling that niche of a real late season bloom. And most of the time you're talking, there's some true blues, some like lilac-y, soft purples.
These things are blue though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many cool cultivars out there. There's the one with the chartreuse leaves and then the blue flowers. That looks really cool. But I'm thinking of a planting of them in downtown Dublin, and they're just like in one of those parking lot islands that gets so dry, like soil cracked dry.
Not to mention the pollution and the salt and the
and people dumping like
Starbucks
half-drank
and-
coffees into it and stuff like that, and it's just like
whatever.
crushing it with the blooms. So
Yeah, and that's one that we would typically kind of leave up through the winter and then cut back in the spring. And the reason I do that is just to kind of help insulate the plant a little bit.
correct. That's one that it can be. It's a little late to leaf out, so you might think it's dead. So just wait, and once I start to see some of the leaves starting to break bud, then I'll cut it, back to just above some of those bottom leaves. So
Yeah, that's a great one. I was just thinking something I wanted to add on to that I've noticed with them is, and it's not really a huge problem by any means, but I have some planted in a border at work, the yellow-leafed one, and I've noticed that it seeds itself around some. I don't know if you've noticed that with it or not, but the ones that I have definitely seed themselves around, not to the point where they're taking everything over. Very, very manageable, but they definitely do seed themselves around some.
Interesting. The one in our garden here at home seeds itself into our gravel patio.
Oh, okay.
And you can see them. The little seedlings look just like it, and you can smell it. It has kind of almost a minty smell to it. So you pull those up, and your fingers smell like mint. But it's kind of like a testimony of it's like literally grows out of gravel.
Yeah, it's a really tough plant.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really good one. I'm glad that we got that one put on the list. I would love to see more people use that plant. So another one we have on here is your. I'm guessing that this is your super pedestrian plant, and then we're gonna the Nepeta. Was that what you were thinking is super pedestrian?
No, that is super pedestrian, but that's my number 2 super pedestrian.
Okay, so we're gonna go with your number 2 super pedestrian right now, and that would just be like your Nepeta, your Walker's Low, or
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah,
That would be my superhero name.
Nepeta.
No, super pedestrian.
Oh, okay.
Like, I just don't have any superpowers. I'm just super pedestrian. Just a regular old guy.
That's what you can be for Halloween. What are you for Halloween? Oh, I'm super pedestrian.
That's actually a really good
And
idea.
you don't have to do anything. Just
you
dress
know
as
I'm not a
yourself.
big fan of Halloween.
I know
so when
you're
I'm
not.
out trick-or-treating with the girls, I'll just be super
You're just drinking
pedestrian.
beers and eating chocolate bars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually true.
Yeah.
Okay, so continue with Nepeta.
Yeah, so Nepeta, the Walker's Low is just, it's one of those plants that is super pedestrian and
Common name catmint.
catmint. Yeah, sorry.
Not to be
Blue-
confused with catnip. Very closely related, but not the same plant.
Kind of a silvery type foliage to it. More of a ground cover type plant. Gets a purple flower on it. The Walker's Low maybe has a little bit more of a mounding type habit, but there's a lot of different ones. They keep coming out with them. They are cat themed, like Persian blue and
kitten around. That's
and
cute.
and all these different ones. Proven Winners has put a lot of them out there, but they're really good kind of front of the border plants. I treat them. They're tough as nails plant. They're, again, very much like the Russian sage.
Yeah, they're like a median plant in Dublin. They're everywhere, and if they were cut back more diligently, they would rebloom multiple times throughout the season. So I mean, they're workhorses, man.
Yeah, I'm convinced that I could get. So I cut mine back once a year. Let it flower. Once the flowers start to kind of fade away, late spring, early summer, I go in and shear those babies back all the way to the ground, and they flush out all new beautiful growth, and they reflower again. And I'm convinced that I could do that a third time for a third flush in the fall, but I'm just too lazy to do it.
Yeah.
So I just do that, the one cut back and call it good. But nonetheless, even through this week, not having rain in almost 2 months, they still look fantastic. Like whatever, in high polluted areas, just horrible soil conditions, and they just power through it.
Interesting fact. Even though they're not catnip, but they are related, cats still like them because earlier this season, mine were done blooming back by my fire pit, and I just took the push mower right over them and just trimmed them back to the ground. And later that evening, my wife looked out the window, and there were two of our neighbors' outdoor cats just rolling around on all the clippings from it.
What would have been funny is if there were like 30 cats back there rolling around in it. Like,
well, it's funny because later on there was another cat that is just like, we're not sure if it's a neighbor's cat or just like a stray cat, but it was also rolling around in it. So
were you singing like, my catnip brings all the cats to the yard?
And I'm like, no, but it was funny to watch. I would like knock on the window and the cat would jump. You know how cats are, they're skittish, and it would jump up and look around and then realize they were not in danger, and they would just continue rolling around on their backs, belly up. So they clearly like it too. So
yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
So cool. So that's since I thought I knew your super pedestrian plant, would you care to share with me what the super pedestrian plant is?
Yeah, Liriope.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, it brings us into our grass-like foliage.
See, I was kind of holding off on the grass-like foliage.
I know,
but that's fine. Okay, roll with it, man.
So Liriope also goes by lily turf, and some people call it monkey grass, which I'm not a fan of that common name.
Yeah,
some people call it that, and it takes me a second, like, monkey grass. Oh, I think they're talking about Liriope.
Okay.
So Liriope is like the basic of basicest plants.
Basic, or yeah, sure, we'll go with that.
It is. It has like a thick grass blade type look to it. There's two main species. There's Liriope muscari and Liriope spicata. Spicata is more the spreading type, and so I like that one because it creates a really nice ground cover. And it's a short plant, like, gosh, no more than 8 to 10 inches, 12 inches,
maybe some. Yeah, I mean, I think I have some that are probably 12 to 15 inches tall, but nonetheless, a short plant.
Short plant, great ground cover. And what's cool about Liriope is, I mean, clearly we're talking about it now, so it's drought tolerant, but it's can do full sun and it can do full shade. and anything in between. And it's the truest plant that can do that stuff.
Semi-evergreen too, like
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
It kind of keeps that green foliage greenish, I guess, in the wintertime, but it still has color on it through the wintertime.
So easy to take care of too. You just run the mower over it,
Run the mower over it in the spring.
It shoots out new growth, and it's like indestructible. And it shoots up little purple flowers, which
whatever.
I mean, if you notice them, you notice them. If you don't, you don't. It's just more about the clean ground cover that it makes. It doesn't have like brown patches. It's just bright green. Just
yeah, green. You can get variegated too if you're into that. Mm-hmm. You can get the variegated foliage, but yeah. So that is pedestrian, but I love it. I use it. I have it planted as green. I use it as like a green mulch in areas where it's like
front of the border is a great place for it.
Yeah, I have it in some islands where it's literally just from like edge to edge liriope and nothing else. It's literally just like a green mulch, and people can step on it and kick it and drive cars over it or whatever they want to do, and it's like whatever,
Some of my favorite plantings of it is downtown Columbus, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, like when you've gone to Blue Jackets games. But downtown Columbus, you've got tall buildings and parking garages and these walkways between them, and they've got up against the buildings and the parking garages, they've got some trees growing, and then it's just a whole mat of liriope under those trees, and it's genius.
Yeah, guess what? They never have to mulch it.
They don't have to do anything. There's no mulching,
no weeding.
The weeds don't get through. They probably mow it back once a year, and that's that.
Yep.
So
no brainer, man.
Yeah.
No brainer for sure. So since we dove right into the grass-like foliage, I'm a sucker for grasses. So
yeah, just to be clear, liriope is not technically, it's not a grass. It looks like a grass, but it's not. Botanically speaking, it is not closely related to grasses at all. But it is a good transition into actual grasses.
So little blue stem is one that we had talked about before. We've talked about it a lot. It makes the list 1,000 times over. This plant's a warm season grass, so most of the grasses that we're going to talk about are going to be warm season grasses. So those are grasses that really do well. They put on most of their growth in the heat of the summertime. So your cool season grasses put on a lot of growth early on. Think of like just even like your normal turf grasses that you have are cool season grasses. When it's nighttime lows in the 50s, daytime highs in the 70s maybe, or even 60s and 40s, but you're getting the rain and the cooler weather, and the cool season grasses do well. The warm season grasses are the ones that just power on and look amazing when it's this time of the year, when it's hot and it's dry and the bad soil conditions and stuff. Little blue stem, and we'll just lump big blue stem right in there with it. Both native plants, both kind of upland prairie type plants. You just find them growing in the harshest of conditions, and they just look fantastic. Everyone's seen little blue stem. If you've ever drove down like a major interstate or highway, the little blue stem just kind of grows native along these highways right up next to the road where they get hammered with salt and road pollution and everything else.
And they're so colorful.
They're colorful. Most of the cultivars you're going to find now don't flop. They have these really pretty blues and like iridescent type blues to
them.
The violets,
purples and burgundies.
Yeah, and then as the summer kind of moves on and we come into fall, the blues and everything, they take on these like burgundy and reds, these really pretty fall color hues, and same with the big blue stems. And they look fantastic, and I don't know what else to say about them.
Well, is there a specific cultivar of little blue stem or several?
I'll just rattle
with big.
Yeah, so I'll rattle off a few that you could easily find probably at a garden center. That would be like Standing Ovation would be one. Twilight Zone would be one.
For little blue stem.
Prairie Blues, I think, is one. There's a variegated one out called Chameleon, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I've been using that a lot. Love it.
Yeah, and then with the big blue stem, there's like Red October's a good one, and then there's the big blue stem, the
Blackhawks.
Blackhawks, yeah, and just the Blackhawks that I have at my house right now, the foliage on it is like dark purple. I mean, it looks black.
Yeah,
against
and
the
it's
brick
like
of my
that
house,
all
and
season long.
Yeah,
it's
and it's
not
just
just like the fall color.
It's beautiful. Yeah, just a beautiful plant. So the little blue stems and the big blue stems, can't speak enough good things about those.
I hope the listeners can hear the passion in Matt's voice when he talks about ornamental grasses.
So I think we need to do an ornamental grass episode.
We
I mean,
will.
it doesn't have to be right now.
We're
Like
gonna
maybe
do a
this
bunch
winter
of
or
ornamental
something.
grass episodes
like-
because this shit's gonna go on for a long time.
I can't get over like the importance of ornamental grasses, and just generally speaking, in the average gardener's, pocket, the lack of use of ornamental grasses.
Absolutely,
Like,
and it seems like when the average gardener is using ornamental grass, they're
it's
using
the wrong
miscanthus.
ones. It's the wrong ornamental
Yeah.
grasses that they're using.
And we have so many great like native grasses that are so colorful and so tough.
Yeah, that do way better than the miscanthus
And look way better than
Yeah,
miscanthus.
100%. So we'll get into that.
That's a
another
story
time.
for another day.
Yeah. So little blue stem and big blue stem, they're again just kicking ass. Always will for you. They'll always perform. Ceslaria, which is an autumnal grass. There's different ones of that. Now this is going to be a smaller in stature grass for you. We're talking like maybe in that 12 to 15 inch tall with the flower. Maybe you're pushing like 18 or 20 inches. There's some
Maybe.
different cultivars that will give you a little bit more height, but
Worthy.
the autumn moor grass is one. It's kind of got this semi-evergreen foliage also.
Lime green.
Yeah, lime green foliage, pretty little flowers, little seed heads on them, but they're again like the liriope. These grasses just muscle right through it all. The road pollution, the foot traffic, the salt, the heat, the poor soils, whatever it may be.
I've used a buttload of it because I found that when I'm doing the urban gardening, in the downtown areas, I need shorter grasses, and I'm not using blue fescue.
No,
I don't.
blue fescue. I think in some situations it's fine, but I think it's such a subpar grass when you're trying to compare it to
Ceslaria.
the Ceslaria. And the Ceslaria, just for me personally, like I have the Greenlee hybrid at home planted
Worthy.
as kind of like a base layer, and I don't really have like a matrix style planting, but I have it kind of filling in some gaps, and
weaving
some
its
cracks
way
and
through
weaving
your garden.
Yeah, all through the garden. And it's just one of those grasses that I planted it as a little tiny plug, sticking in the ground. I plugged some in like this spring, watered them for a little bit, haven't touched them, and like we haven't had rain in 2 months, and these things are still putting on growth, and I haven't watered them, and I'm just like,
it's not the
how?
center of attention in your garden, and it will never be. But what it does is helps lift the other things up.
Yeah,
so much.
It adds texture, it adds structure, and not to mention it takes up space that I'm not having to mulch and I'm not having to weed and stuff. So,
Yep.
So Ceslaria is a great one. What else do we have for some grasses? I put a couple carex on here.
Yeah, tell me about some caryxes.
So carex or your sedges. I put blue zinger on here as a cultivar, so that would be kind of a blue silvery type foliage, not really silvery, blue green type foliage that just, it maybe gets to 12 or 15 inches tall, and then it just kind of falls over and it drapes and it flows, and it's real fine textured, moves in the breeze, it really softens edges. It can be used in matrix style plantings as this kind of green mulch that we talk about, but
Great in heat and drought.
yeah, great in heat and drought. It can take some sun. I mean, we have it planted in some full sun down in Dublin, and it seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, well, if I chose it because I was looking through the Hoffman book, which is a wholesale.
Yeah, they're out of the Carolinas.
Nursery that focuses on grasses and grass-like plants, and they've got this great page with all the charts, and it was one of their highest-rated sedges for full sun, and low water.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose it.
I have some at home planted in some extremely dry shade, and it's doing extremely well. And then I've used it in Dublin in some different plantings, and it does fantastic. And then also when talking about sedges, we're going to talk about grassland sedge or Carex divulsa. And this is another one that I've used kind of in lieu of Carex appalachia or Carex pennsylvanica, which the Pennsylvania sedge and the Appalachian sedge, they're both fine, but I've just found that the Carex divulsa seems to do a little bit better in the sun and a little bit better with the drier conditions.
Yeah, we just visited your big planting of Carex divulsa today, and it just looks wonderful.
Yeah, it's not a showy plant by any means. It's just like a green grass. You could even use it as a lawn alternative, to be honest with you. But, it is doing what I want it to do, which is cover the mulch so that I don't have to mulch in there. And then I'm going to, I have shade perennials planted within it that kind of rise up through and above this thing, but just using it as kind of a matrix base layer to a shade planting. Part of it is getting quite a bit of sun, and it's just kicking butt. Probably more so than the stuff that's in the full shade, but
absolutely.
Nonetheless, this is all planted underneath these like just moisture-loving maple trees, shallow-rooted trees that just suck all of the groundwater right out.
Suck it.
And they're just kicking butt. We'll get some pictures of that stuff up. So, yeah, so I had to hit on some sedges there. You got any other grasses that you wanted to go over?
I'm good with grasses and grass-like.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
right on. Any other perennials? I know there's a couple more perennials that you wanted to hit on. There's one that you have quite a few of them planted here at your house. They're flowering right now.
Yeah, anemone, Japanese anemone. So these are the late summer into fall blooming anemones.
What would the common name be on that?
Windflower. Windflower.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing, what I've noticed with this, is it's not really marketed it's marketed as more of a full sun to part plant, but I've got it growing in some seriously full shade, and that's where it's banging. So it's doing great in like dry shade. I haven't showed you these pictures yet, but over at Bristol Park, there's that big planting of it by the bridge.
Okay,
it's completely dead. Not dead, but the crowns it's all dry and brown and crisped up. But everything I've got here at home and planted in Dublin that's backed off and at least in part or to full shade is in full bloom, like talking lots of blooms. The foliage is not that nice dark green. So
I'll be honest with you, all of the anemone that I've ever planted has either been in part sun or shade. I've never used it in full sun, and I know that you'll see on plant tags that it says full sun, but in my experiences, like, it does best in part sun to shade.
And that stuff in full sun that I'm referencing that just completely crapped out, it always does great. But this season, it's done. It's dead.
Wow. This is, so for context, for those of you that are not in Ohio, we are in the middle of the worst drought in the history of the state of Ohio.
Since they've kept records.
So since the 1800s. Okay, so we literally have gotten rain over the past 24 hours. I personally, at my house, have gotten about 1.5 inches over the past 24 hours, which is great. But prior to that, for the whole month of August and the whole month of September, I had less than 1/10 of an inch of rain in those 2 months. And we're talking like, it hasn't just been dry, but also like days that hit 99 degrees out.
And we haven't had like overcast spells. It's been
sunny, hot.
Sun's out, guns out,
hot and dry.
And it sucks. Like if you don't like the heat, like Matt and I don't, it's sucked.
And that's why we're revisiting this talk on these survivor perennials, because, I know we keep talking about how it's been so dry and stuff, but there's a lot of gardeners out there that are really struggling with this and don't know what to do. And I mean, this is new for all of us in the horticulture world too, here in Ohio. Like, this is uncharted waters for us, like stuff that we've had dry spells before, and we've had hot dry spells before, but this is like, a whole nother level of that, and we're seeing things that did okay through that, like not do so well going through this. So
yeah, like new plantings that we put in the spring. The fact that we're still having to water them is ridiculous, because you'd have been done watering that stuff by now. But a lot of people we work with are still hitting that stuff because it needs it.
Yeah, and I mean, I have like at my home Japanese maples that I planted 3 years ago, that and they've been great up until this, and they're all like, all of the leaves turn completely dry, crispy brown on them, and they've completely like almost defoliated.
We drove by. Did you notice the frontage of Blendon Woods Metro Park when we drove by it today?
I didn't. No, I was.
So like all the sugar maples along the front are in like almost full fall color.
Yeah,
because they're just like, I give up. I'd want to go dormant.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So that's why we're revisiting this talk. But yeah, so are there any other perennials, or does that kind of wrap up the list for us?
I think we can wrap it up.
Are you pretty cool with that? Yeah. So so that kind of wraps up this episode. This list of plants. If there's anything that we think of that we come across that we didn't mention, maybe we'll try and get that out there to you guys in another episode. But fingers crossed that we start getting some more consistent fall rains. That would be fantastic, because we've got a lot of stuff that we want to plant at work. And to be quite honest with you right now, like, I'm not super motivated to plant anything because of this crap weather that we've been in, just the hot and the dry. So fingers crossed we start getting some rain. It's unfortunate that there's a hurricane that sounds like it could get super nasty down in the panhandle of Florida, like Category 3, possibly Category 4. Don't want to hear that or see that happen, because that definitely ruins people's lives. But, if that does happen, fingers crossed that it brings some of that rain up our way, because we need it bad. So, that's that. What else you got?
I thought I had something to say, but I think that's it.
Nothing? No, like funny jokes for anybody? No. Or I had a joke that I wanted to say, but now I can't remember it.
I'm just kind of like, after that whole plant hauling thing we did, I'm just like drained out.
Dude, that plant hauling thing was insane.
Yeah. It was a clown show.
But it was fun.
That was fun.
It really was fun. I got a good chuckle out of it.
Yeah, we should post some pictures of that.
Yeah, we can. We can post some pictures of some of these plants that we talked about today, and maybe we can just throw some fun pictures up of my car and your car full of plants and this trailer full of plants, and that'd be cool.
It was a good-looking Subicon.
And when you get this planted, I expect you to get some pictures out there of this thing planted.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like, fresh install, and then, like, you know how I am. I always love the, like, 2 to 3 year, what it looks like in 2 to 3. I'm always like, looks nice, but let me see it in 2 to 3 years.
Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. So I'll get you those fresh planted pictures.
Yeah, and then quote of the day, too, or quote of the week, too, was from you today. I loved this quote, and it stuck with me, and that was, you know why my planting death rate is 0%? It's because I always cut a good cookie off of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When you're planting plants that are coming out of pots, cut some damn roots off. Yeah. It's okay.
It cut a little cookie off the bottom.
Cut a cookie off the bottom.
You're not going to hurt them roots.
They like that.
Yeah.
So,
but I just thought it was funny today when you're like,
I have a very low death rate.
You know why my death rate 0%? Because I cut a good cookie off of it. I'm like, okay, Tim.
I love a good.
And you're like,
cookie.
They call me that, Tim the cookie cutter. So,
I believe I said cookie cutter Fleischer.
Cookie cutter Fleischer, yeah, something like that. So, you get the gist, though.
All right.
Anyway, so that kind of wraps it up for this episode. If you guys have any questions or want to hear anything or whatever it may be, hit us up on Gmail, shrubbybuddies@gmail.com. Hit us up on the gram. Hit us up on Facebook.
In the meantime, rain, come my way. Come Absolutely. Here every day.
Absolutely. So,
as they say,
we've got some good talks and episodes that we want to get out to you guys. I know we talked with I talked with Bob Burby from Burby Bulb Company, and he's going to come on the show with us sometime here in the very near future to talk the history of his company, the Leo Burby Bulb Company and Dutch Mill Greenhouse, and just kind of the bulb industry and how the bulbs get from the soil in the ground in Holland to, his warehouse here not here but in Marysville, Ohio, my hometown, and, the retail shelves around the United States and all of that stuff. And then maybe even, he can share with us like some of his favorite fall bulbs or any little tips and tricks for people getting into the fall bulb thing, because you know what? It's the end of September coming into October, and it's like bulb season for us. So.
I'm super excited about that. Bob is a standout guy, and I'm looking forward to that. We also have an episode coming up that is going to, maybe create some problems.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know that episode.
Dirty Dozen.
Oh, Bob, Bob was like really wanting, because when him and I were talking about it, he's like, I want you guys to do the Dirty Dozen. So, yeah,
okay.
so we're going to do...
Yeah, we're going to do an episode about the plants that we hate.
Yeah.
And it's going to probably offend some of you, and we hope you just still listen because...
Yeah, it may offend some, but, I mean...
It's all in fun.
It's all in fun. And
it's in fun and science because it was scientifically proven that Matt and I hate these plants. So...
Absolutely. So... All right, cool, peeps. Well, that does it for us. Again, I'm Matt, joined with Tim. We're the Shrubby Buddies here in Central Ohio. Peace, love, and perennials, trees, shrubs, and all of that fun stuff. We out?
We out. We love you.
Harder +2.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.